I've never thought about that expression. Where did that come from?
Probably from playing marbles.
Yeah.
Glad I could help.
Because when you win a game of marbles, apparently you just get to take all the marbles.
Life used to be so harsh. Just imagine all those kids losing all of their marbles. And how do you get marbles back after you've lost all the marbles?
You don't.
That's just it.
I think the most important thing we've learned is that the game of marbles was popular enough that it became a very well-known expression. Hello and welcome to Flanagan's Wake, a Doof Media podcast that discusses the perfectly splendid Mike Flanagan and his work. My name is Scott Daly, and joining me, as always, he still hasn't quite gotten a handle on tea yet. It's Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
Oh, just ever so sweet.
She put so much sugar in that tea.
So much sugar.
So
Yes.
much sugar.
That's how you know she's American.
Yep. This week, Matt, after wrapping up our time with Henry James and what will surely be remembered as the most popular period of our show ever, we are finally prepared to begin to take a look at Mike Flanagan's anthology follow-up to The Haunting of Hill House. That's right. We're talking about The Haunting of Bly Manor. This week, episode 1 of the series, The Great Good Place. Hey, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It's like we read a thing that said that.
We did.
Yeah.
Everyone listening now who has no idea what we're talking about.
They didn't do the homework. They didn't do the homework. And speaking of which, before we get started today, Matt, I think we do have a special award to hand out to our most loyal, diligent listeners, right?
Yes, our loyal, diligent listeners who have made their way through all of the Henry James stories with us. You're entitled to one-time only award. We're granting you the qualification for entreaty unto a monstrous ordeal
award. Congratulations, everyone. There is no award, like physical award, and we also obviously can't say your name or give you any kind of recognition outside of what is happening right now.
Right.
But that's what we got. Congratulations. There were some people that tapped out early, and that was fine. There were some people that struggled all the way through it, and there's some people that hung with us the whole time. And mad respect to those of you that did that. Like we talked about, Matt, I don't know if I would have been able to plow as much as I loved those stories. I don't know if I was not doing this for a show, if I would have been able to keep at it. So y'all did great. You should be proud.
For those who just might not have listened to those episodes or whatever, it really was very rewarding. But like you just said, on almost a moment to moment basis, I would just be like, oh my God, this is I can't with this. And then like the next sentence would be some amazing way of conveying some feeling or idea. And then when you stand back from the whole story, they're all really good stories. Like I don't think there was a one story in that whole set that we thought was just like bad, right? So I'm really glad we did that, and I understand if you didn't follow along with us, but I think I'm also glad that we did it because it's really obvious that we're going to be referencing those stories a bunch in the coming conversation.
I'm so glad you said that because we went into the short, we always knew we were going to read The Turn of the Screw because obviously, as we're about to get into, Bly Manor is most based off Turn of the Screw. It's very clear very quickly in this show. And I was not sure, having never read any of these Henry James short stories, but outside of Turn of the Screw, I was not sure how much this was going to relate. And it's so exciting and refreshing. One episode in being like, oh, we made the right choice. We made even if it's just small little throwaway references, of which there are several in this first episode alone, it's just going to bring a broader context of both Henry James and what he was doing and the things that Flanagan and his team borrowed from those stories to create the world of this story. And so, yeah, I mean, like, just immediately vindicated is how I felt after sitting down to watch this episode of TV.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, congratulations on your qualification for Entreaty unto a Monstrous Ordeal award, which I'm sure Mr. James himself would love that.
Yeah, go ahead and comment on whatever platform is convenient to you for recognition.
Yeah, take your recognition for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, let's get into it. Bly Manor, the Haunting of Bly Manor, the 9-episode series follow-up to The Haunting of Hill House. It was released by Netflix in October of 2020. So yeah, that was a heck of a year. I actually think like October of 2020 was such a weird thing because like I think the lockdown, everyone's inside doing nothing phase of the pandemic had ended, and the everyone is cautiously attempting to go about their day while wearing masks all the time and being kind of scared portion of the pandemic was still right in the middle of it. So it's just a weird time. I remember I have very distinct memories. I watched the show when it came out, and I have very distinct memories because I loved Hill House. I really loved Hill House. I don't think I was even like paying enough attention to know that there was another series from Flanagan coming in this world. And I like lost it when I realized it, and I watched it very, very quickly in pandemic times. And then I think maybe that's why I just this one thing I'm going to talk about is I kind of lost track of this one in my brain. I remember very little of the story, and I've been refreshing my memory as I prepared for this episode. But Hill House was a thing that I watched, really, really emotionally affected me. I watched several times after it. It's not that I necessarily like Bly Manor less. It just didn't impact me in the same way, and I have not revisited it until this show right here. So I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, me too. And like I said, I haven't watched this one before either. So once again, I am the novice being led to the slaughter.
Yeah. Of course, this is loosely adapted, of course, from Henry James' The Turn of the Screw. We will see kind of how loosely adapted as we continue on. At least we can say rather comfortably that the basic setup of The Turn of the Screw is present, right? Now, the show could veer very quickly from this, and we already kind of get the feeling that it's going to, but we have our basic setup here.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the premise seems to be the same premise. Where we go with that premise, it might be different, right?
Yep.
And there's more elements in play, and yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. And I think another thing to bring up here at the very beginning, that while all episodes of The Haunting of Hill House were, of course, directed, and I think directed by Mike Flanagan, I don't think he was the on the tin writer for each of them. I think he wrote 4 of them, but he directed every single episode. He kept true to his word when he said he was never going to do that again. Of course, until the next thing he did after this. And so he did not direct all 9 episodes of The Haunting of Bly Manor. He only directed 1. So today's episode is the only episode of this entire series that is both written and directed by Mike Flanagan. Though, of course, like, he's the showrunner, he's the creator, like, he's very intimately involved in the story and the decisions made along the process of creating the story. But he will not be sitting in the director's chair. He will not be the credited writer on the other 8 episodes in this series. So that's going to be something new for us. Everything that we've covered so far has been directed by Mike Flanagan and written by Mike Flanagan, well, for the most part. And so that's a big change for us. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how, like, Mike has such a very distinct style that was kind of created in Hill House, and then because he's directing the first episode here, it kind of establishes that style here in Bly Manor, and I'm really interested to see how those other directors copy or interpret or change that style. I think it's gonna be really cool to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is technically an anthology show, so we see a lot of our actors return from Hill House. Not all of them, but quite a few of them. It's funny though, like, you could just look at this and say, like, oh no, this is an anthology show. This is just Mike Flanagan. This is what he does. He brings all the same people back. But it is supposed to be an anthology show. When I first watched this, I didn't even realize, I didn't know Mike Flanagan enough to know that he likes to bring the same actors back for all his projects. And so I just saw this as uncomplicatedly an anthology project because it has Victoria Pedretti. It, of course, has Carla Gugino. It has Henry James. It has Oliver Jackson Cohen, who we only got a glimpse of in this episode, who plays Peter.
You meant Henry Thomas, but that's a fun.
What did I say? Did I say Henry James? Jesus.
Henry James, yeah. Which is a sensible mistake to have made.
It's not going to be the last time I do that, I will assure you. Yeah.
The thing that I think made it the most straightforwardly obvious that it is an anthology show to me is that the music is the same music. It's not similar. It's the same music. I mean, there may be some different motifs that they use, but I'm thinking specifically of the scene in the chapel. It's just that emotional music from Haunting of Hill House, and I wasn't actually expecting that. I expected there to be a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if I even knew that this was just a straightforward anthology, sequel in a sense to The Haunting of Hill House, but the music made it really clear. And I think also, just the fact that it's like, this is Mike Flanagan does houses. It's
Yeah, but I do want to talk about that. So as we get into this week's episode, of course, titled The Great Good Place, as we said, this was written for TV by Mike Flanagan. It also had listed Laurie Penny and Rebecca Klingel as story editors. Of course, directed by Mike Flanagan, edited by Mike Flanagan and Brian Jeremiah Smith. The director of photography on the show was Maxime Alejandre. Look, I don't know French. The point here that I wanted to make with that is no Michael Fimignari, who has been Flanagan's director of photography, I think, for everything he's done since Oculus. So Oculus through Hill House, Fimignari was Flanagan's DP, even for Dr. Sleep. This is one of the few things that he's not the DP on, and I'm sure it was just like a scheduling issue, right? That I'm sure, because he works with him again after this. Like for Midnight Mass, who's the DP on Midnight Mass? It's Fimignari. So I think it's probably just a scheduling thing. So again, we have Flanagan not directing all the episodes, and we also have his cinematographer for the show changing. But I mean, so far, this new DP has done a great job. I really like the look and feel of the show, but just to mention that.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
But anyway, what I wanted to talk to you about, I think a great way to start this whole thing is with this idea of expectations and this idea of what were your expectations going into it? And then maybe more broadly, what are the expectations that any viewer would have going into this show? And how I think the team behind it kind of meets those expectations and then kind of subverts them in some interesting ways. Because one thing I was thinking about a lot while watching this show is, as you mentioned, the music, the motifs from Hill House are here present. Like when the show opens, we don't have a cold open in this one, right? The show opens on the opening credits, and the opening credits, the visuals themselves are different, but the credit music is the Haunting of Hill House music. It is exactly the same. And so it is really interesting here that this is a show that kind of has to exist in this world where people are coming to it. We are coming to it with a certain level of expectation of what a Haunting of show is from the Haunting of Hill House. But also at the same time, it has to be a show that is also basically a pilot. I think Flanagan actually mentioned he did a director's commentary for this first episode. He mentioned in that director's commentary that he treated this as a pilot, and it makes sense. It is. You're introducing all new characters. You're kind of teaching people what the show is. You're asking a bunch of questions. When putting the notes together for this episode, I was struggling with it in the same way that I was struggling with the first episode of Hill House, and that there's so much setup here for things that pay off later, and I don't know how to broach a lot of these things with you without tipping the hand of the show at all.
Well, yeah. So to speak to the question of expectations, and then maybe after that to the question of how this episode functions as a beginning, I think I'm just going to assume a similar thing is going to happen here as what happened with Haunting of Hill House, where he's going to take the character and narrative and thematic elements and take them apart like Lego bricks and then reassemble them into a cool, different looking Lego that's a thematically similar Lego. Except I think the difference here is it's not just one story that he's reassembling. He is taking a bunch of stories and, like Voltron, he's kind of attaching them together. But obviously there's going to be one core Lego Voltron element, which is the turning of the screw, and I feel like the other elements are going to be more referential, like The Great Good Place. Let's just say that right up here. I mean, there's a short story called The Great Good Place. It's about a guy who has an ancestral home that he has complicated feelings about, and it's sort of in a certain sense haunted by the possibility of what could have been. Do I think that specific narrative element is going to be in this story? Not really. I mean,
so you're thinking of the wrong story, by the way, just to interrupt you. Like the great Good Place short story is the one where he goes to a relaxing spa for 2 weeks.
You're right.
In a single afternoon.
I'm thinking of
Jolly Corner.
Jolly Corner.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, how embarrassing.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, the Great Good Place is where he wants to go to a relaxing spa, which is if anything even less directly relevant. Although it's sort of that's what they keep calling it, like, oh, it's a great good place. So they're kind of referring to the Bly Manor itself as being like, oh, it's a wonderful place. And then of course, we're going to find out it's not actually. It's actually horribly haunted. So
yeah. No, that's a great point. I think the Great Good Place as a reference point for the show is to the book story is probably like one of the thinner ones we've seen so far, right? I think it's a fun like I see what you're doing there thing, but it's not related to the story itself at all.
Yeah.
But I wanted to I think it's good to start at the opening credits a little bit here, because we talked about the opening credits for Hill House. And so I wanted to touch on the opening credits here for Bly as well, because so I don't know if you remember the opening credits for Hill House, but they had the same music that's going on here. And what we saw was a bunch of the various statues in Hill House. Hill House was so dominated by these, like, frankly terrifying statues. Mm-hmm. And in the opening credits of Hill House, we're seeing those statues like crack and crumble and fall apart. And the statues themselves seem to be screaming in pain and misery. What we get in Bly Manor is very different. What we get in Bly Manor is paintings of all of our cast of characters. It's every single one of our characters, and then we watch slowly as their face kind of melts away to just be this empty blankness. And that's what we see for every single character in the show. And that is so interesting to me, because I think Hill House, the credits at least, was much more focused on the house itself. Like, these are the marble statues in the house, the cracking, and the way the house could represent the characters in it. And then of course at the very end of the Hill House credits, we did this zoom out to this maze that Hill House was. This Bly Manor is entirely focused on the characters, right? These are just portraits of characters watching as their faces kind of fade away. And it almost maybe makes a declarative statement in the very opening of, like, maybe this is going to be less about the house itself and more about the people. Now, of course, the house is like the place. It's the Great Good Place. I think the place is still going to matter, but it might matter less than the people there, which is a funny thing to say, because of course that was true in Hill House as well. But I think Hill House was a definite character in that show. Yeah,
the central sort of conceit is that it's this evil house, right? Whereas in this one, I think it's like there's specific people who are haunted for specific reasons. Well, that's what it seems like so far. I mean, I guess just, one thing I'll say, and I could be completely off base about this, but like this episode felt like a more traditional setup for a basically traditional haunting tale. Like, we've got the concept of like the young woman from out of town comes in to have to care for the two children in the creepy house feels like a premise that we have done a few times. I mean, it's not quite the premise of the others, but it's sort of like, like you've got creepy environment, you've got creepy children, you've got woman who's I think a fairly standard premise for horror is like young innocent woman has to protect children against against a ghost or a haunting or whatever. That's like 40% of horror movies, right?
Well, yeah, and the interesting thing about Hill House was that in the framing of that show, the titular haunting of Hill House occurs in the past, and we are now in the future. Whereas in the frame of Bly Manor, there is like a kind of setup prologue scene in the future, but then we jump immediately back, and it seems like most of the story is going to take place during the initial haunting itself, right? So
Yeah.
I think you're right. Like, I think Flanagan kind of set out in Hill House to maybe subvert that traditional haunted house story, and this is kind of so far clinging a lot closer to it.
Again, it could be setting it up that way so that it misleads us into thinking that it's going to be traditional, and then it's not at all. But
sure,
yeah, it just seems, the other big contrast is Haunting of Hill House had this, incredibly difficult narrative concept of cutting back and forth between the past and the present, and having basically completely duplicate casts for the older the grown-up version of the characters and the younger version of the characters. Just like insane difficulty level to pull that off. That's one of the many things that makes the show just a remarkable achievement. It doesn't currently seem like we're really going to do that. I mean, yes, you're right that we have the framing story, just like in Turning of the Screw, but that sort of feels like the kind of framing story where maybe we check in every once in a while. Carla Gugino takes a break, or whatever. Or maybe we don't return to Carla Gugino until the end, and she wraps it all up and says that she was the little girl or whatever. That's a guess, by the way. I have no idea.
That's a good guess. It's interesting because one of the things that Flanagan said in the commentary for episode 1 is that when they originally kind of wrote and broke the story, their plan was for Gugino to like basically just be the bookends of the episode, and so like she starts telling the tale, we get her narrative voice telling the story, and then we just leave that behind. And we don't pick up on it again till later. And then it was only later that they realized that they really wanted her as like the narrator to really fix this as a kind of a ghost story being told to people. And so we see in this episode, Gugino pops up multiple times throughout the course of it to narrate events for us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that makes sense. If you've got Carla Gugino to be your narrator, then you should use her for that. Yes.
I agree. She's excellent. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I mean, let's just talk about that now, because this is kind of the framing story here. We meet Carla Gugino sitting in a chair, waking up. She's looking at a door that's been cracked open, and then she walks into a bathroom with a sink filled with water and a bathtub filled with water, and we have to shrug our shoulders and say, I don't understand what any of this means. So, I mean, I of course understand what it means, Matt, but I'm not going to tell you. But it's like, I think one of the things, talking about expectations and talking about what this story is and what it isn't, this is a different type of story than Hill House. I think you can probably tell that already. We've already been talking about it a little bit, but even like tonally and even like the goal of the story, this is different. This is much more of like a gothic romance type story. And I mean, we have kind of the opening lines of the story. We have Gugino singing a song called "O Willow Waly," which actually, by the way, was used in the 1961 The Innocents movie, that adaptation of The Turn of the Screw that we talked about a few weeks ago. So that was a song written for that movie, and they kind of just pulled it over here. But like that's the opening lines of the show, and it's talking about we lay, my love and I, beneath the weeping willow, but now alone I lie and weep beside the tree, singing O willow waly by the tree that weeps with me, singing O willow waly till my lover return to me. Right, that is the opening statement of what the show is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move from that into the wedding that offers Gugino's excuse to tell the story, and that wedding is filled with people talking about love and loss, right? Like it's just like we have the one guy gets up to give a speech and he says, to truly love a person is to understand that the work of loving them is worth the pain of losing them. It's a very dramatic statement, he says.
Yeah.
But like that's just like before we even get into Danny and 1987 and everything that goes on there, we're being like pummeled with these ideas of love and loss and sadness and like it's just the show is, I think, doing a very deliberate attempt to get us on the vibe of what kind of story this is going to be.
Yeah, right. I think we are definitely planting some clues, right? I mean, so there's no explicit love story in this first episode, right?
No.
The what we have are tantalizing clues that like there's a man who is haunting her when she looks in the mirror, right? And like maybe this was a love interest of hers.
Sure.
Entirely possible that that's wrong. It could be that certain of the characters who have just met in the house for the first time are going to fall in love, and maybe we watch that happen in the course of this story, and that could be like a sort of classic gothic love tale where they fall in love and then one of them dies.
Yeah, we also have Peter and Miss Jessel, right? Who, if we believe Mrs. Gross, not the best love story.
Yeah,
if we take her word for it.
Yes, that's true, and maybe we'll get flashbacks to see what happened there in more detail, or maybe that's just going to be a background element. But yes, you're right. These are clearly the elements we're threading toward everything.
Yeah. So that gets us into the story itself, Matt, and we jump back to the 1980s. 1987 is when the story takes place, which is great, and I think solves some problems immediately. So the framing story takes place in 2007, and then we jump back in time, and guess what? We don't have any more cell phones. Problem solved. I think Flanagan has talked multiple times about how he, like, every time you shoot in contemporary nowadays, you have to solve the problem of cell phones, and he likes shooting period stuff just because that you don't have to do that. And so we get the 1980s here.
The funny thing to me is I couldn't tell just by looking what time period it was supposed to be in, and then I realized, oh, it's in London. So the fact that everyone is dressed well is because they're in London. But yeah, it's like the 80s in London, everyone would have been dressed that way. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
There is like a little, like right when we cut over to Danny and see her walking down the street for the first time, it does says London 1987. So they do tell you. You probably just missed it. But so we meet Danny, played by the wonderful Victoria Pedretti, and man, I continue to just be in love with her and the stuff she does. This is such a different character from Nell. It's such a different character, and I'm really into what she's doing here. What did you think of Danny and your introduction to her?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, I feel like this is a more like energetic and kind of like magnetic and captivating performance where she's very much on the edge, right? There's this manic energy. There's like a desperation that she's covering up with a frantic energy, and then like side by side with that, there's the fact that she genuinely is a good caretaker for these children. Like, so it's a very human performance. So like that, I think I cram all of that together because like I see that as being a very difficult needle to thread, where it's like, no, it's not, she's not being like Harley Quinn, where it's like, oh, she's just crazy. It's like, no, there's a human performance at the core of this. And then there's layers of what she's hiding and what she's using as a mask over other, I love all of that. I love just, even the scenes where not a lot of emoting is called for. There's still these layers, this complexity that is showing and hinting at, this thing that happened in her past that she's trying to live down.
The reason she's constantly covering the mirrors at all times.
Constantly covering the mirrors. And just like while we're on the topic of her, just in case we don't return to this, like the moment in the closet was just an incredible moment. Like it just made me be like, okay, I mean, I was prepared for this show to not be as good as Haunting of Hill House because not everything can be. But then this scene happens and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a treat. And it's like, why? It's just a woman in a closet, and it's like that's what's so genius about it to me is like we have the confidence in Victoria Pedretti to just be like, all right, here's the scene. You're in the closet. The camera's not going to move.
Yeah, Flanagan puts the camera just like right there. The camera is essentially the door, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, Victoria, go.
Yeah, go. And you're gonna and it's like you're with her for the entire journey of like,
Yeah,
I'm kind of mad at these kids. I'm getting really mad at these kids. I'm getting a little bit freaked out. I'm getting really freaked out. I'm completely losing my shit.
yeah,
I don't know. I just extremely good, and just again the fact that we don't cut, we don't change the camera angle.
nope.
We're just looking directly into her face as she's experiencing all this. I was like, I think I actually got like body chills from the effect of it. And like nothing's even happening. I mean, yeah, there's the mirror in the back of the room, but it's not like okay, this is what I wanted to say is like, I don't think I got chills because I was like, oh, that thing's going to come out of the mirror and get her. No,
Yeah.
I just had chills from the power of the emotions that were happening
Mhm.
on the screen, you know?
Yeah, my favorite part of the mirror is not even like that we get the spooky eyeglasses ghost image we've gotten all time. My favorite part of the mirror is when she looks in the mirror and sees the ghost again and gets freaked out. The way Victoria Pedretti like grabs a blanket to throw over the mirror, and then like I don't know, I just love the detail of she kind of is just trying to cover the mirror, and in the effect of covering the mirror, she kind of knocks it over, and it's just kind of knocked over and barely covered. But it just feels like this extremely real, messy, panicked. This is what someone would do if they're just trying to make it so they can't see this thing and they're not cared. Like, I just love that. I don't know if like that's in the like you talk about that in the blocking of the scene, or if it's just like something that happens in the moment of she went to throw the blanket over the mirror and it just kind of fell over sideways. And I was like, no, that's actually perfect, and that does everything. Yeah, I agree with you. That is, I think, the highlight of the episode for me. An episode that I quite enjoyed overall. That is a highlight of the episode for me, and I agree. I love that Flanagan refuses to let us out of there. I think the most he does is when we cut from her and her panic attack to them finally letting her out. The transition moment of that scene is Flanagan finally like cuts to just the door itself and then pulls back slowly from the door, and we still don't get to see what's going on. We don't see the kids, we don't see what they're doing while she's locked in there, but we just it's like this slow pullback of like I'm gonna release you from the tension of this scene, Scott, but I'm gonna do it slowly and deliberately.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get off easy. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
Yeah. And I think, just to talk about the kids, maybe we can, I don't know if you wanted to go through the show linearly, but I feel
I
like
don't care. Let's just go. Yeah.
there's like a natural opportunity to talk about the kids here, where I think when we were talking about this earlier, in shorthand, you refer to them as the creepy kids because that's kind of the trope that they play. But I actually thought the show did a great job at keeping that ambiguity that we really enjoyed in The Turning of the Screw, where both of the kids really, there's a lot of moments where you're just genuinely unsure as the viewer, like, is this kid being just creepy as hell right now, or are they just being really sweet and earnest, and like there's not even any guile behind this, they're just like, because I think like my interpretation of what's happening at a plot level is there's terrifying ghost stuff happening in this house. The kids are aware of it. The kids have concocted like rituals to keep themselves safe involving little dolls, and we've only seen the hints of this so far.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever the kids are being weird and creepy, it's because they're like trying to protect everyone from the terrifying ghosts, or at least that's in their mind what they're doing, right?
Sure.
And but then also like they're just like really sweet, wonderful kids, which I think again that's the wonderful thing about the turning of the screw, is that everything those kids say in that whole book could be construed as just like, wow, what sweet kids, or like these kids are possessed by Satan. They're just pretending or in some cases, the kids are like, this woman who has been sent to take care of us is crazy, and we have to placate her because she freaks us out. Like that's another fun interpretation of that. I don't think we're doing that specific thing with this show. Maybe we'll get there. Anyway, thoughts on the creepy kids?
Yeah, I love that. I agree with you. I think they, especially in this first episode, what Flanagan and team are trying to do is ride the line of just mostly making us unsettled because we can't really pinpoint, like, there are moments specifically designed in this episode to make us uncertain about Miles. Obviously the most clear and direct one is when he creeps back in and is watching Danny change. That comes off a little creepy. He also, like, the actor who plays him, a kid named Benjamin Evan Ainsworth, like, does a pretty remarkable job of, like, sometimes just saying things that don't sound like things that a kid would say. Like, we joked about this when we read The Turn of the Screw, that, like, that has Henry James ever heard a child speak? I think that was part of what he was doing, and I think Flanagan has kind of channeled that here, where there's moments when Miles just doesn't appear to talk like a little boy at all, and those are unsettling and creepy. There's definitely, I think you're right, there's definitely being signaled there's something going on here that they are aware of, or believe that they're aware of. Like, I think one of the really interesting scenes to me that really points this out is after the night that Danny gets up and makes herself tea. She's talking with Flora in the morning, and Flora's mad at her because she promised Flora she'd stay in her room, and she's talking about the lady in the lake. And she starts talking about the lady in the lake, and in the background we see Miles, like, messing with something in the corner, and then, like, in the next moment he goes, Flora, and he says it, like, really serious, and then a second after that he goes, Flora, look, and he's got the spider to scare her. And it's just like, he was very obviously, like, saying shut up, right?
Yeah.
Like, in his way.
Yeah.
Just the tone of it, it's really, really great stuff. And yeah, he does navigate that a little bit. And there's moments, I love what Flanagan did with in the book. The governess is always kind of, like, trying to figure out what it is that Miles did that got him kicked out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way that was interpreted in this episode. So, because there are several moments throughout the story that Danny is, in a very, like, humane and kind and comforting kind of way, just trying to, like, prod at Miles a little bit to, like, figure out, like, is that what happened at school? Like, just, you can talk to me. And it's not like, it's so different from, I think, the way James wrote it in the book, because, like, in the book, it was, like, driving her insane, not knowing, like, what could this kid have possibly done? Is this kid evil? Is he the devil? Is this why he got kicked out of school? And in this, it just seems like she just feels like, to better understand this kid and to better help him through it, whatever he's going through, getting a little bit more information on what led him to leave school would be helpful. And I love, like, it allows us to see that Danny is, like, a good teacher. Like, we're kind of introduced to the character as, like, she's a teacher. She felt overwhelmed by the number of students, and so the idea of just helping two, at least this is what she tells Henry Thomas, right? Obviously she has a part of her past she's not telling Henry Thomas, the creepy man in the mirror. But this is, I think when she has that conversation with Henry Thomas at the bar, I don't think she's lying when she says, I was overwhelmed with 24 kids, maybe just two. I could actually help just two. I think that's completely honest. And she's just not telling the full truth. She's not telling her full catch. She's telling part of it.
Right. Yeah. The reason why she fled from America, and is here, that's not the reason why she fled America. That is the reason why maybe she's seeking this change in line of work. Yeah. I think that's right. Just because it crossed my mind there, like, the idea of the American leaving America to go work in Europe is not a reference to Henry James' story so much as to Henry James, because that's kind of what he did. He was an American who lived most of his life in Europe.
Mm-hmm. So. I do also really love the contrast of Danny being new to Bly and that being contrast with some of the other characters and their feelings about Bly. The most obvious in this is the character of Owen, who we haven't talked about yet, played by Raul Coley. I think this is the first time he becomes a Flanagan regular as well. After this is the first thing of his that we've gotten to watch. I love the guy. I've been watching him since oh my gosh, the zombie show. Why am I blanking on the zombie show now? I'm very upset now. iZombie, there it is. It was a Rob Thomas show called iZombie that it was such a fun show, and he was so good in it. So it's great to see him here. But the point of bringing him up here is that he has a very specific feeling about Bly. Like, I think he calls it, like, what does he call it? Like a sinkhole or something.
Yeah, that was like a black hole. Yeah,
a black hole. Yeah, something that, like,
whole town's one big gravity well.
A gravity well. That's what he calls it. He calls it a gravity well. And so we have all these people that seem to be like stuck in Bly, and then we have this new person that's coming to it, and she's so excited about all of it, and everyone's like, "Why? why are you here of all places?" So I think that's a really great thing that I want to pay attention to as we go through it, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting characters, right? So in turning, is it Turn of the Screw or Turning of the Screw?
It's the Turn of the Screw.
The Turn of the Screw. I think in my head it's right next to the Taming of the Shrew. And
they're basically the same.
Yeah, basically the same. That's what I always say. Turn of the Screw, where we really just have Mrs. Gross, who is a character here, but we don't really have any other characters, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in this we have the gardener and we have the driver,
the chef, man. He's not chef. A driver. He's a chef.
Oh, the chef and the driver. Yeah. So yeah, more characters, which I think makes sense for a TV show. You're going to have more dynamics. There's going to be more to do. How many episodes is this? Do you have
9?
9. Okay. Yeah. Then you just got to have some more characters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. There is a fun moment though in this episode where I think when they're all around dinner and Owen walks out of the room, and so the 4 of them around the table, and it's like, oh, there they are. These are the characters from the Turn of the Screw right here. We have Mrs. Gross. We have the governess, who gets a name in the show, and then we have the 2 children. So that's it. Those are our 4 characters. But yeah, they expand on it. I did want to, still talking about Danny, our protagonist. I really loved her first scene with Henry Thomas. I think it's a great scene, and it's like a great way of introducing her character to us. So this is the interview scene, right? She goes up for an interview. Henry Thomas is doing a British accent. There's a lot of accent work in the show. Carlo Gugino is doing an accent. Henry Thomas is doing an accent. You haven't actually heard him talk yet, but Oliver Jackson Cohen, who plays Peter Quint, of course, you know him as Luke from Hill House, but he's going to be doing an accent in the show. And Victoria Pedretti is doing an accent too, a little bit, right? She is putting an affect on her voice. It's kind of a Midwestern-y thing a little bit, but not like as strong as like a Fargo accent or something, but like not entirely far off either.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if I didn't even think to put a label on it, but I guess I guess you're right. It's subtle. It's just, I think it's mainly just meant to make her seem out of place among all these proper speaking English people.
Yeah.
I did want to reemphasize Henry James. No,
Thomas. Damn it's Thomas. We've confused ourselves.
Thomas James's accent.
Thomas James? Are you doing this on purpose?
Henry Thomas James.
Oh my God.
It's gone. I have no idea what his name is now, and it's not ever going to come back. Anyway, that guy, his accent was like really good in that way where it felt effortless. Where if I felt like if I was just watching this show cold and had no idea who he was, I would just assume he was a British man.
The accent, like just the sound of the words he's making, I think is really, really good. But he's also channeling this like very like British smarminess that I think is like so like he's doing such a good job at it, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, I mean, like you could just like he looks British in the scene. Like he's not, but he looks British. And just like the way he's holding himself, the way like this is his face acting, just all of these things are combining to create this character that just like looks the part. Like he's nailing it. I think it's just like seeing as this asshole British gentleman, he's completely nailing it.
Yeah, he's far too wealthy and important to be wasting his time having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
And extremely like reserved, but so all of the actual acting is like through this mask of reserve. I thought it was great.
But he's also clearly a drunk, and he has to in the bar scene with Victoria Pedretti, he has to do some drunk acting too, and I think he does a very great job of doing the same kind of British smarminess that he's doing in the interview scene, but just a few drinks in, where he's just a little sloppier and a little looser. I think it's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I don't know if we're going to see a lot more of him, because if we're going by the turn of the screw, we shouldn't see any more of him. But the TV show can diverge, obviously. So
yeah. But the real star of that scene, I think, is once again Victoria Pedretti, because I think she's really remarkable in that, both the interview and then the subsequent meeting in the bar afterwards. I love that scene because like he is being such an asshole, and he's being so dismissive and rude to her, like in the middle of her talking, to just be like, so what's the catch, right? And it's just like why are you really here? And she like kind of effortlessly parries that and then sends it back at him. And it's like, that is a really great character defining moment, that this is a woman who comes off as, maybe with help of the accent, a little airheaded, maybe a little less formal, a little less sure of herself. She's obviously running from something. We don't quite know what it is yet. But when pushed into a corner or when attacked, she's going to defend herself. We get multiple moments of that. I really like the spider that Miles gives her later in the episode too, is another great moment of that, is that like the expectation here is that she's going to get scared and be like, ew, spider. But she's like, no. And not only does she know, she's like, I love that moment of like, you know what I learned? I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was. And she gives like face acting again. Pedretti gives Miles a look, and I'm just like, that's so good. It's just such a good like teacher to student look. I know we've just spent like 30 minutes just like glazing her up, as the kids call it, but like she's just like, she's really good in this show. She really is.
I agree. We'll try to restrict it to to a maximum of 30 minutes per episode going forward. But
sure.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. I think there's sort of this association might carry entirely the wrong connotations, but I'm thinking of the like Clarice Starling going to see Hannibal, where like you've got this like super polished, reserved, like totally in control of the situation man, and then the unsure woman with her good purse and her cheap shoes, aware of the difference in sort of social power level, but then over the course of the scene kind of doing a flip, which Clarice also does in that movie, right?
Yeah.
So I like
not
that.
what I would have thought of, but I like that. And I also really like the extension of that in the bar, right? When she's the one that approaches him, she sets the stakes, and then that is ultimately what gets her the job, is that conversation at the bar. It's great. It's great stuff. It really is.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. I have to ask you, Matt, did you see any ghosts?
I think I saw like one half of a ghost.
Okay. Where?
I do have apparently just a neurological inability to see the ghosts, but I think there was like, I think, during the sequence when she goes to get the tea at night, there are a couple of shots of the plague doctor, let's call him, because
he's dressed in a plague doctor mask.
Dressed in a plague doctor mask. There are a couple of shots of that I'm pretty sure you're just supposed to like, the viewer it's in focus. You're supposed to be like, oh, there's a ghost there. But then there's a couple of shots, I think, sort of in that sequence where it's in the background and you're not necessarily supposed to have noticed it yet. Maybe you are supposed to have noticed it and I'm just noticing it because I was supposed to notice it. But anyway, that's the main time that I can remember seeing it. You and I kind of talked about this a little bit before, and like I feel like there might have been a couple moments where something in the sort of back of the frame would catch my eye and I would look, and then it would be like, is that no, I think that's just like, I think that's just shadows, or like the way the curtain is falling, or I would talk myself out of it. And then maybe that was actually supposed to be just like the out of focus plague doctor in retrospect. I don't actually know. And I honestly don't even know how I would be sure, but it did make me feel kind of disconcerted and an off kilter while watching.
Yeah, so you're definitely supposed to notice the plague doctor in the scene with the teeth, for sure, right? I think Flanagan does this really, and he talks about this in the commentary. He does this really interesting match cut thing where we foreground the sink, and then we're focusing on Danny in the background, and then we rack that focus and put the sink itself in focus, and then as she's walking out of the kitchen, we do that exact same shot, only the thing out of focus in the foreground is just another thing that looks kind of like a sink nozzle, but is the nose of the plague doctor. And then as Danny walks away, we rack focus on that, and he moves and turns. It's this really great like setup and payoff thing, because it's like you're not sure what that is. It's in frame, it's in front of you, but it's blurry, and you can't understand what it is and why you would compose a scene this way. It doesn't make sense. And then the move and turn. But yeah, that fucker is in every shot in the whole episode. Like, it's really funny. I didn't catch them all, but I was listening to Flanagan's commentary, and he points out every time he's there. And like by the end of the episode, Flanagan's like, Jesus, we really put this guy everywhere. Maybe we did it too much. But he's in like every single shot. And I think the difference between that and like the ghosts from Hill House is those were usually like pale white-faced ghosts, right? That kind of in the darkness of some of the scenes, if you were looking for them, maybe popped a little bit. But the plague doctor is like in his full get-up, and so he doesn't really pop in the scene. Like, he's behind doors, he's in the fireplace in the kitchen at one point. The funniest one to me is they put him outside in the scene where Flora and Miles Danny are talking. That's a scene with the spider. He's out there just in the field behind them, but he's out of focus, and Flanagan is like, they'll just think it's a tree. And it does kind of look like a tree. It's really funny how, like, right. But I think this is a different from Hill House, where Hill House was just like, these are just like random ghosts, just like and they have no real tie into the story, whatever. I think we're being led to believe that this is like a specific ghost within the story. We've seen him move, right? And then, of course, we have that wonderful shot of the dollhouse where we go through the dollhouse and see different rooms with different dolls in it that may or may not represent ghosts in Bly Manor. So, yeah, we're doing a little bit different with the ghosts in this season.
Yeah, right. And the dollhouse, and like the kids... I said this before, but like the kids, at least in their own minds, think that they're doing something with the dolls that matters, right? That there's some kind of magic, some kind of voodoo. Maybe it is real, maybe it's not. We don't know enough to be sure yet.
Well, we have the one doll that she's pretty insistent keeps under the dresser for whatever reason. Don't know anything about that yet, but yeah.
Just the note about the sink. I mean, we had the dripping of the faucet sort of punctuating I don't necessarily want to say punctuating the arrival of the plague doctor, but at least associated with the plague doctor. And then we have the idea of Carla Gugino, who has like the sink full of water. And I'm just kind of connecting these ideas. And also that Miss Jessel drowned in the lake, and there's you know, some water imagery at least happening.
No, I think that's good connections. Don't know what to do with it yet, but we're drawing a lot of common trends here for sure. I want to talk about, we talked a lot about Miles. I want to talk about Flora a little bit, because I think this little girl is also doing a really remarkable job.
Yes.
One of my favorite scenes in the episode is her in the bathtub. And it's this great scene where Danny's just I love the detail of the little like crown of bubbles on her head. I think it's so adorable, and like I can totally believe a kid's doing that. But like this kid is like constantly looking to Danny's left, like constantly throughout the scene, looking to Danny's left to something she seems to be nodding at and smiling at. There's something there. There's some sort of ghost possibly there. But we don't get to see it. And Flanagan sets the shot up so great, Matt. So this is a split diopter shot, which I don't know. I think you remember what that was, but I'll say it again for the audience just in case they don't. So the concept of a split diopter is, the way a camera lens works, typically only one thing can be focused in time. So if you focus on something in the foreground, the background will go out of focus, vice versa. Split diopter is basically a lens that's kind of cut down the middle and has different focal lengths on each side. And what it does is allow you to focus on something both in the foreground and the background. And I think Flanagan uses that shot like 4 times in this episode, but this one might be my favorite because he's focusing on 2 things. One is Danny in the foreground, and 2 is nothing in the background. The focus of the shot is focusing on emptiness, and that really drives home in this wonderful split diopter shot that there should be something there.
Yeah.
The language of film is telling you that there is something there, but of course there's nothing there.
Yeah,
and it's great.
It's super unsettling. Not especially, I don't know, like not knowing where we're going with this, because they're in the bathroom, and I think you're conscious of the fact that there's like the vanity mirror, but it's we see the vanity mirror enough to know like, okay, it's not that the glasses dude is just like in the vanity mirror, like we can see that he's not. So what's going on? I kind of love that we have these two, the little girl and the woman who both are clearly haunted by something and aware of that and are trying to put on a brave face and just completely cover it I think that occurs to me in that scene because like on one level it is a heartwarming and beautiful moment of this woman who really loves kids and is forming a bond with this girl, and this girl who is just so delightful and funny, and she's starting to really like this teacher, and there's like a superficial level on which it's just like a good heartwarming scene, but then like you say, the girl keeps looking off to the side at something that's not there, and then there's the mirror in the room which reminds you, even if the guy is not in the mirror, the presence of the mirror reminds you of mirrors and reminds you that she's also being haunted. And so they both have this lurking presence, that they both have their own lurking presence that's kind of making it so that there's this oppressive feeling over the scene.
Yeah, and of course the show is also playing with tone there a bit too, because we keep going back and forth, and then we introduce the comb that Miles had given to Danny, that Flora sees, we learn belonged to Miss Jessel, the former caretaker, and Flora is like almost schizophrenically changing her mind about how she feels about this, right? Like first she says like, he shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't wear that. But then by the end of the thing, she's like, actually, no, it's fine. It's okay. You can wear it. And that just adds to the uncertainty of all this thing.
Yeah.
It's really well done.
Yeah. I love that, where you're not really sure, like her getting all dark about it. It's like, well, maybe, she knows something you don't know. Maybe the comb is dangerous. Yeah, just because it reminded me, because we didn't really talk about this when we talked about the closet scene. We know that they locked her in the closet on purpose.
Yeah.
And I may be bringing in too many of my, like biases from Turn of the Screw or just like trope awareness, but I'm like, I bet they have a good reason for doing that, but they're just not gonna tell her, obviously.
Sure.
And now she's gonna be really mad at them, understandably, for doing that. They're gonna have to have some excuse. So it's just a really good dramatic situation. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. It's the ambiguity of it, right? You can read that as they're just being assholes to her. These damn kids, that should we be scared of these kids? I don't know. But you can read it as maybe there's something else going on there too. Yeah. I really like it. Yeah. Just for reference, the other split diopter shots, there is one really great shot where Danny is talking to Miles in his room, and I think she's talking to him about the comb, and that like Flora was not very happy that you did that, and Miles is like, Flora gets does not happy about a lot of things, and like the whole time in focus in the background is Flora playing with the dollhouse in split diopter. And I think that's like, again, like we're talking about Flora, we're talking about Danny and Flora, and we're taking efforts to make us feel ambiguously uncertain about these kids. Are they good? Are they bad? What's going on here? And just so having her in focus in the background the entire time, I think was really, really effective. I like Flanagan clearly loves the split diopter shot, and I love it too. Right?
Yeah.
Like I love it.
That's really interesting because I'm remembering now, like not only that, but also when she then goes to tuck in Flora. I don't know if it was a split diopter shot because I don't know that I can tell those just by looking, but when she does that, the angle that we're seeing it is right down that hallway that connects their bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Miles, and I'm like, oh, we see Miles in the background. What is that little shit up to? What is he going to do? And like all he does is he like calmly turns off his light and gets in bed.
Yeah,
which is what he was supposed. And you're like, huh? But like I think where my head goes is like we're establishing this pattern of this connecting hallway, and the idea that we're going to take advantage of that, and we can see what the other kid is doing when she's talking to one of the kids.
Yeah.
So maybe one thing we're doing with this element is we're setting up that expectation so that in later episodes we have a shot that goes down that hallway and we see something that she doesn't see, but we see. We'll just have to see.
It's such a great idea, like just geographically that whole set I think is great with the Jack and Jill bathroom that's split. Yeah, it just and you know what's in that bathroom, by the way?
What?
Plague Doctor. It's in there.
Of course.
I'm telling you, man, it's like every shot. It's every shot. But yeah, so the last split diopter, and I think this is a perfect segue to talk about Mrs. Gross a little bit, is in the church. Mrs. Gross is sitting in front of her altar for the dead, and that's when she's giving her really great, like there's only one monologue. There's only one Flanagan monologue in this episode, and Mrs. Gross gets it. And in that shot, while she's giving her monologue, it's a scene with her in the foreground, and in the background is Danny watching her, and that is a diopter shot. That's the only one where I'm not like, I wonder why he chose to shoot it that way, and I'm not quite clear on it. Maybe he just wanted Danny in focus at the same time too. It, like, the thing about the split diopter, in my opinion, is it like, even if you don't know it and notice it, like it still makes the scene feel different in a way, and you just, I don't know, I just always pay attention to it more.
Yeah.
So I think if that's all it was doing there, then I think it worked.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like who's dramatically in control of this scene? Is it, and it's always like, well, the person who we're focusing on is who we should be watching. And then when both people are in focus at the same time, it leaves the choice somewhat in our hands. And it also, I think, shows like what the person is saying and how the other person is reacting are both conveying information that is important. And so you can see both of them at the same time, and that way we don't have to cut back and forth, which is your other option.
True. That allows you to have Danny reaction shots without having to cut, and so you can just do a single shot and have her do the whole monologue the whole time.
We got to talk about the altar for the dead.
Yeah, so that's the most obvious. That was the moment where I said, I'm glad we read the Henry James short stories, when I saw her sitting in a church in front of, like, before she even says that the candles are for the dead. It was like, oh yeah, I'm so glad we did this.
Yeah. And one detail is, I think there are 4 candles, and
there are,
and the usual way, you know, I don't know if this is just a Catholic thing or just like if this is a broad Christian tradition. Probably a broad Christian tradition, I would guess, actually, but just like to have, you know, a candle for each of the dead that you're honoring.
Mm-hmm. And that was true in the short story as well. So
yeah.
So Matt, let's do a little math here real quick.
Yeah. 4.
So we have Flora's mother and father.
Yep.
The way she talks so lovingly about Rebecca Jessel,
Yeah.
you could make the assumption that candle number 3 is for Miss Jessel.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem to know that Peter Quint is dead, which we only kind of know because we read The Turn of the Screw and also because we saw his ghost on the parapet, right?
Right.
But she doesn't, even if she did knew Peter Quint was dead, based on the monologue, she doesn't seem to like Peter Quint too much.
No. So
who is the fourth candle for?
Yeah, and like she seems really, heartbroken, like on a personal level. Like I'm not saying it's impossible that she would be heartbroken about the deaths of the kids' parents, but I feel like it feels more personal somehow.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a fourth death that is more personal to her.
So what's your take on her? Because I think she's a really interesting character. Like she was an interesting character in The Turn of the Screw, right? That we couldn't quite get our hands on because so much of what we saw about her was filtered through the narrator going insane and was like, was Mrs. Gross backing her up or just placating her? Or that was the questions we had in The Turn of the Screw. What is your take on this version of this character?
Well, very different. I think this character is a lot more like emotionally wound up in whatever's going on with this place. Like Mrs. Gross in the other story was basically sort of a hapless observer almost of like what's happening. Whereas this character, she may know more about like I don't think she knows that like the house is haunted. That's not the vibe I get from her, but she definitely seems like kind of overwhelmed by the tragedy of all of this and seems to feel it all very deeply. I don't know. To be honest, I felt like we were more setting stuff up that we're going to explore later with her.
So I think we should say this. She's played by a woman named Tania Miller. I think she's really, really great. I think her monologue is just once again, Flanagan gives people the best stuff to work with. And when you get good actors with good writing, you can just nail it. And I think she does a really great job in that monologue. I think she's sufficiently mysterious in these episodes. I think you're right. We're setting some stuff up. We're not sure how we feel about her. She's very emotionally attached to the children. Obviously was very emotionally attached to Rebecca Jessel and to this place. So, yeah.
I think mysterious is a great word for her, where I think, intentionally we're supposed to be like, what's her deal? How much is she aware of? I just had one of those flashes of memory, by the way, talking about the candles, where I remembered being a little kid and going to mass with my mom and like seeing all the candles and her being like, those are like the candles are lit to honor the dead. I think she may have said like, they're lit for the souls of people who are dead. And my little kid mind interpreted that as meaning these candles have to be kept lit for the sake of the souls of the dead. And if your candle ever goes out, your soul is extinguished. That was my immediate assumption. That's
such a kid reaction to that. I love it.
I what's funny is I don't even know how long I persisted because I didn't say that to her. I just that was just instantly my assumption, and probably walked around thinking that you have to keep those candles lit for extremely, it's more than life or death. It's the souls of the dead.
I think it shows how like decent of a person you are that you didn't internalize that information and then run around the church blowing out candles. Because some people would.
Yeah. I think I may have even like felt extreme anxiety about the idea that I would accidentally blow a candle out.
Yeah, that sounds like you, actually. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think the one thing Miss Gross, whatever, does for us here is fill us a little bit in on Rebecca Jessel and on Peter Quint and whatever happened there. We know we had heard from Henry Thomas's character that Jessel killed herself, which I think lines up with the turn of the screw. I think the book says it in not quite so many words, but the heavily implies that she took her own life in that as well. But in here, it's by walking into a lake, which there's got to be better ways to go, Matt. Walk into a lake.
Yeah, right. I mean, I agree. It sounds almost like supernaturally influenced, right? Where it's
Sure.
like that's just it's not a very effective way to do it, for one thing. And it kind of sounds like, she's either driven mad or like, enticed to go into the water. I think the subtext in Turn of the Screw is that like, okay, now I'm actually getting confused, but I think the subtext was like her and Quint were just like in love, and then Quint is killed in an accident, and then she kills herself out of despair. I think that was my assumption.
Yeah, I also think there's subtext in Turn of the Screw that she's pregnant as well.
Yeah.
And of course we don't know if that's what is the case in this show, but worth mentioning. Yeah. I mean, we mentioned the lake. That lake was real. They built a man-made lake for the shoot. But one thing I think I learned from the commentary that I wanted to mention here that I didn't know was Bly Manor is not real. The exterior shots of Bly Manor are 100% digital, all of them.
It's wild. I would not have guessed.
So they were just standing in a field, like the scene that caps off the end of the episode where Danny gets out of the closet finally, and then sees muddy footprints leading out of the house, and then turns back around and sees the two kids looking down at her creepily from the windows. That was just Victoria Pedretti looking up at a blue screen and saying, "You're kind of freaked out. Look freaked out."
Yeah, that's great.
It is kind of wild. Like I think I just like I didn't know that and I never noticed it. But I think they just do really good work at making it look and feel like a real place.
Yeah.
Of course, the interiors are real, right? They built that set, but
that's cool. Yeah, I had no idea. I did want to talk about the interior a bit, and once again, forced to compare and contrast against Haunting of Hill House, where like the house in the Haunting of Hill House is this, larger than life, sort of oppressive, dark, kind of intentionally confusingly laid out floor plan, where the kitchen in that house is like cramped and kind of angled, and everything feels boxed in Hill House, whereas this house, that kitchen, man, if I ever win the lottery, I'm getting that kitchen. That's a beautiful kitchen, a huge kitchen, and the dining table and like the fireplace. Like it's the contrast is what I'm getting at. Is like this felt like such a warm and welcoming place most of the time. I mean, when there's a plague doctor in the background, less so, and there's certainly some shots where you feel creeped out, but the kitchen is like the kitchen dining area feels like this airy, sunny, very, very inviting space, actually.
Yeah, it's perfectly splendid, all of it.
Yes, perfectly splendid. It's a very good place.
Except for the classroom. It's
quite boring.
Flora's tour is delightful. I love that actress so much.
Yes. It's continuing the trend of Mike Flanagan finding the best child actors and giving them sort of freedom to kind of steal the scene, right?
I mean, you want to give the actors credit, and of course the actors deserve the credit, but at some point you just have to be, this team is very good at finding the right actors for the right roles and at directing them to get the best performances out of them, right?
Yeah.
Like it just has to be that way.
Yeah. I mean, she's delightful, she's charming, but then there's this undercurrent of something else is going on with both her and her brother, but in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, even outside of mysterious supernatural stuff, what we learn about Flora is that she is the one that discovered the body of Miss Jessel. That she's the one that found her floating in the pond. So outside of anything else, that's got to do a number on her. And one thing we do know for sure is that Flora is trying to protect them in her way, right? She has these talismans that she made that Miss Gross says she puts around the place to try to protect them. I really, speaking of which, I really love that moment. And again, it's just back to the character of Dani and how much I like her. Is like, I love that moment where she confronts Flora about the talismans and says, I appreciate you doing this, and I know you're trying to protect everyone, but one thing you got to make sure is when you're trying to protect everyone else, you need to make sure you're protecting yourself too. So don't go out on the parapet.
Yeah.
I loved that as like a caretaker moment.
Yeah, right. Because she's not telling her, stop doing this. We're putting away this foolishness.
Yeah,
it makes her more lovable.
And of course, she's not buying into any of like the actual like this is actually doing anything, right? Of course, but it's just like she's doing the kind thing where you're like placating a kid in some ways. Like, I'm not gonna destroy your fun or take away your imagination, but also you can't be climbing out on places you're not supposed to go.
Yeah. But I mean, being trope aware, when she removed that doll from where Flora had put it, you're like, don't move the doll. The doll needed to be there.
Well, and of course, that's where we saw good old Peter Quint.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I do just want to say that sequence where she first sees Pete on the parapet, I thought was great stuff. So, like, this is a scene that in the book was like a big focus, right? Like Henry James spent some time on the scene and kind of the governess's thought process as she looks up and just sees a man on the parapet, and like how weird it is. Like, it's just a man up there. It's like there was nothing ghostly about him. It's just like there's a man that shouldn't be somewhere that he is, and how she finds that completely unsettling and uncomfortable, and it kind of starts her slow roll into insanity. And here, the way Flanagan shoots this scene is, I don't know if you even noticed this, but he drops all sound from the sequence except for, I think it's Dani's breathing, and he like dials up the sound mix of Dani's breathing, and so all we hear is like air noises and like Dani breathing, and all the nature sounds have completely cut out, and it's just her looking at him and Peter just up on that parapet just staring back at her, doesn't even move, doesn't even do anything. And then it's the sounds of nature kind of come back, and they make Dani like turn to like notice and react to the sound of the world has returned. And then when she looks back, he's gone. I just thought that was like just great filmmaking. I really like that.
Yeah, me too. It's great.
All right. I do want to talk about Owen a little bit more. What'd you feel about, we introduced him briefly. What'd you feel about Raul Coley's character in this book or this television show so far?
I mean, he's delightful. He's charming. He doesn't overtly seem to have any kind of terrible dark secret, unlike most of the other characters. I mean, I like this idea of him representing like trying to get away from this place and not at all seeing the pastoral beauty of the English countryside, because he has grown up here. I love the interaction where she's like, it's so beautiful, and he's like, is it? Because like the place where you grew up, you're just like, this is normal, this is boring. Again, I feel like we are establishing these characters so that we can do stuff with them and explore them later. I don't know. I'd be surprised to learn that he is aware that the house is haunted or whatever.
Sure. Well, we know he was a chef training in Paris. And had to come back to Bly because of his sick mother, right? Mm. So that's like, he kind of gave up his life a little bit to come take care of his mother, and so that's an interesting character trait that we can explore as the show goes on. I really love his interactions with Flora in particular. It's this one thing that Raul Coley's so good at is being this kind of sarcastic, funny type character, and it just can interact with the kids so well. I thought like every time he interacts with Flora, it's delightful.
Yeah. That's he comes off as very lovable. And
I know like this is just prop people and not the character, but the food he makes looks damn good. Like that bangers and mash. Like I wanted to eat that. That looked really good.
Yeah. I feel like that all goes in with just the hominess of that kitchen area. It just feels very inviting and like, I want to go there. I want to have some food and sit at this table, and yeah.
To make the Hill House comparison, though, we once again have some characters who leave the house at night. So it's not quite the same, but both Owen and Jamie, the gardener, who we haven't even talked about yet, they don't live at Hill House or at Bly Manor, so they leave at night. So that is just like in
Just
Hill
like Hill
House.
House,
Yeah. So just to note that. So let's talk about Jamie, because she is the gardener, and I think her introductory scene is one of the most fascinating for me. And there was always something about it that I was trying to figure out, and then I listened to the director's commentary, and Flanagan basically answered my question for me. But what did you think of Jamie? We get very little time with her, but it is a scene that feels different from a lot of the other scenes in the episode.
Well, I think I'm going to go with your word mysterious again, because like just the sort of low grade awkwardness and uncomfortableness of her walking in without introducing herself, the way the camera frames it, it's like everyone is aware of her presence, but no one has acknowledged her and she hasn't acknowledged them. To be honest, for the first few seconds of that scene, I was like, are we going to find out that like Danny's the only person who can see her? Because Danny's the only person who seems to be overtly reacting to her presence at all. And I almost felt like there was something tingling in the air, between them. And then, obviously I'm wrong, because she starts talking to them very quickly in that scene. It's a way that makes you, it's an unusual way of introducing a character that makes you intrigued, because the character is like telegraphing this like being closed and cagey.
Yeah, I love that. I get all that. It is this really kind of fascinating and almost confusing construction and introduction of a character. And the thing that I learned from the director's commentary that I wanted to share, maybe we can talk about what that means for the future of this character, is this scene was basically constructed in the edit. So in the original script, there was a scene where Jamie and Danny met the way most people normally meet, and they introduced themselves to each other, and they talked, and they had a whole scene with each other. And that ended up getting cut. Not only did it cut, I don't think they ever shot it. I think they just like ran out of time and weren't able to even shoot that scene. And so they had to, in the edit, construct this sequence and make this a sequence in which the characters are, when the actors all performed it, supposed to have already met. But now we need to construct the story around the fact that no, they haven't actually already met, and this character is acting like she doesn't care about that, because that none of the actors during the performance knew that that's what they were doing. Like, I think Flanagan said in the director's commentary, there's a moment where Victoria Pedretti like looks like inquisitively and like maybe even a little bit longingly, I think you said you picked up on some sparkles, over to Jamie. And that was her looking at the food because she was hungry. And then they kind of like in the edit, like re-edited the whole scene and like rebuilt the sequence basically around this general idea that this woman just walks in and doesn't say hi to anyone, doesn't say hi to Danny at all. Because I think in the scene that they ended up not shooting, they like their meeting was not like friendly. They kind of got on each other's nerves, and so that's why she's not addressing her at all in the scene, is because she's a little annoyed with her. But of course that's not the case in the actual finished version of the scene, right? And so they had to create this scene, and it's one of those things that like you just think that the difficulties of production sometimes create stuff that is more brilliant than you could ever actually write it, because it allows you to zoom in on this character in a way that I don't think you would otherwise, because we have no reason to think about this character at all right now. She, in this first episode, it functionally doesn't exist, right?
Right.
She's just in that one scene and that's it. But the way the scene plays out, we're paying attention to it more, because it's a little confusing. It's like, what's going on here? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this way? And it's like, we pay more attention to that.
Yeah, because we sort of set up a pattern of like, we're basically following the standard film way of introducing characters, where we meet this character and they have their introduction scene where they meet Danny, and then we have this character and they have their introduction scene where they meet Danny, and then we and we do that again, and then who's that? She just walked in. There's another person here.
Yeah.
Like it really catches your attention, and it makes you kind of worried about the character, kind of interested in the character. Yeah, it's fun, and it's fun to know that they didn't plan on that, but they're like, well, we could make something more interesting than what we had planned by doing this. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, I think Flanagan references the old quote that you make a movie 3 times. You make a movie in the script, you make a movie in the shooting, and then you make a movie in the editing. And this is one of those examples of that. They just created something whole cloth just from clever editing. It's fun. Movies are. This whole thing is so fun. I love it. Yeah. By the way, we talked about the spider earlier. Just want to mention that is a real spider. We have a CG Bly Manor, but a real spider.
Yeah. It's one of those friendly little spiders that you see in your house.
Yeah. You see those spiders in your house?
Actually, I don't really see any spiders here in Colorado, but I feel like that was the spider type that I used to see a lot when I was in Texas.
I mean, I guess so.
It's just a friendly little brown spider.
Friendly little brown recluse.
Yeah, it's too big to be a brown recluse. It's just a friendly spider.
Do you believe? So Miles, when basically Miles says, like, I knew this wasn't going to scare you, Danny. It's clearly he was trying to just scare Flora. Like, do you believe him in that?
I feel like that's a perfect turn of the screw ambiguity moment where I have no idea whether I believe him or not. He could be totally, that could be exactly what it is. He just take him at his word, or he could be just the most cosmically manipulative little satanic shit who is saying what he knows she wants to hear, and I really can't tell, and I love that. I mean, you talked about the peeping scene earlier, and I personally felt like that was shot and performed in a way where you could read it as like this creepy little kid. He's a peeping Tom, or you could watch it as just like he wanted to talk to her, so he like pushed on her door, and then it opened, and then he was kind of like frozen when he realized she was undressing, and then was like too awkward to say anything. And then when she saw him, he just kind of tried to like play it off. And that was my interpretation, because like there's clearly a way that you shoot that sequence to make it obvious that he's just peeping.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that. They left it where you don't realize that he's even there until she does. And to me, the point of that is to make it unclear to us, like what's going on with him exactly, which I think is that's where we're meant to be.
Yeah, that creepy little shit. No, but I mean, I think you're right. Like, the thing I love about Miles so much, like in this episode, we have scenes like that, and then we have when Miles hears that Danny talked to his uncle, his reaction is, you talked to my uncle? Did he ask about us? And it's like, there's this really like legitimate heartbreaking moment of like, this kid is fully aware that his uncle does not give a shit about him.
Yeah.
He knows it. And like, we haven't really talked about the fact that their parents are dead. I mean, this is something that happened in Turn of the Screw as well, but both of their parents have died 2 years ago. And then they went through this thing with Miss Jessel recently where she also died. And so they're just like, on some level, they're just like sad kids. They're just really sad kids. And like, the idea that their only remaining family doesn't want anything to do with them, I think, is a big bummer to Miles. And of course, yeah, the place is haunted, and maybe they're aware of that, so that adds another level of pressure to their existence in this world.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that's present in just this 45-minute episode, and I think it's such a good pilot, man. We talked about pilot at the beginning, but once again, like, there's so much this episode has to do, both in expectations from people coming in from Hill House, expectations of people who have never seen this before, people who have never read The Turn of the Screw, people who have read The Turn of the Screw, like setting up all these characters, setting up these mysteries, asking these questions, getting the plot rolling, like it's all here in this 45-minute episode. I think it's really good. I still, if you forced me to like rank Mike Flanagan stuff, I would still put Hill House above this, but I really am curious how my feelings are going to go as we get through the remaining 8 episodes here.
Yeah, me too. I'm enjoying the hell out of this. I feel like Hill House is like so ambitious. It's like shockingly ambitious, and then he pulls it off. They all pull it off, right? It's this cutting back and forth in time, even within the same episode, where we have the ridiculous oneer episode, just transcendent, and then like that, like so far this is it's a story that has gripped me successfully. I'm into it. I care what's going to happen. It's just like, and this isn't like a critique of it. It's just like, well, we're not aiming for the same heights that we were with the Haunting of Hill House. It seems, because we're not doing all of those things, right? Although I don't want to short sell it. I mean, we've got plague doctors everywhere. You know, maybe there's going to be its own ambitious artistic works, just in a different way that I'm not seeing yet. We'll see.
Yeah, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for that as we go, but I agree with you. Like, I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a oneer episode in this season. I mean, just the idea that like Flanagan said, I'm not doing that thing where I direct all these episodes again. Like he was going for it in Hill House, and I think it'd be selling all the people who worked very hard on this thing to say they're not going for it as hard with Bly Manor. But also, like, I don't know if you can go as hard as they did in Hill House, like, ever. Like, I don't know if people are capable of doing that more than once. So,
also, you know, like the material in Hill House was, I think, like, it was very heavy, very, very heavy material.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even saying that this show is not. First of all, I haven't seen this show, so I have no idea. But like this show, we said this kind of at the beginning. Like, this show currently to me tonally feels like it's going for the gothic horror thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Haunting of Hill House, like, yeah, there was some gothic horror like vibe to it, but it was this really visceral family drama with just incredible raw pain that all these characters were surviving their, you know, just really kind of brutal stuff, right? Like brutal subject matter in that show. And I think like the doing the oneer, like, that's like, yeah, it kind of fits with the elevated emotionality of what we're doing here. Whereas I guess maybe that wouldn't quite fit as well with this material. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense.
It makes a little bit of sense. Yeah. I mean, I think this is the kind of thing where I just have to wait until we get a little further into it to really talk about it. But
yeah,
I can see why you feel that way coming one episode into it.
Yeah, I want to, you know, put the proper qualifiers, because it's like, this is just my impression from one episode. We will see as we go.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to say about this episode before we wrap this thing up?
Really just the one note, which was like, yeah, so we're setting it in the mid 80s. We're not setting it in the mid 1880s or whatever. And, you know, that's a choice on some level. Like, we could have said it in the past, right? And I was just wondering if, you know, if there's like a narrative purpose to that, you know, and again, since we're just the first episode, we can't really answer that yet, but.
That's an interesting question. Like, I never really thought about that obviously, like, we talked about how he didn't want to set a contemporary because cell phones, which is just a supposition. I don't actually know that, but why set it close to contemporary versus set it in the time frame? I mean, like, he did that with Hill House, right? Hill House was a book that took place in the 1950s, and he made it modern day. So maybe it's just part and parcel of that understanding that we're gonna bring these old stories to modern times, or maybe there's greater purpose to it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. I don't know that I needed a big answer to that. It was just something that crossed my mind. Cool. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Cool. Yeah. I think I covered everything I wanted to talk about. Just there was one more like cool effect that I really liked that I'm just going to throw in there for us before we end it. Is we talked about Carla Gugino in the framing story and her with this water in the bathtub that we have no idea what to make of. But I really like this moment where she looks into the bathtub and we see her reflection looking back at her. You've already talked about the importance of mirrors and reflections and so far, because it's been a constant motif through the show, but we see this reflection and then she pulls the plug on the drain. And so that ripples out and the ripples of the water like push her reflection away. And I thought that was just a really, really nice effect in a show that we've kind of been introduced to the concept of through the opening scene of faces being kind of flattened and removed. Anything that like distorts faces is something I'm paying special attention to. So I really like that.
Yeah, and it kind of merges the idea of a mirror with water, which we sort of identified as two different symbols, but they're being kind of joined there. That's cool.
Yeah. So what, Matt, as we wrap up, are you expecting or looking forward to next? So just to tell you, episode 2 is called The Pupil. It's another one we remember. Probably not going to be another close adaptation of that short story. I would be very curious how they would make that work. But what are you expecting from this one?
Yeah, well, I expect we're going to focus a bit more on her role as the teacher. She'll try to teach them classes, and then maybe we'll have some delightfully written sequences where they come to know each other better in the course of her trying to be their teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like you said, the actual specific content of that short story, I don't really see a way to shoehorn that into this story beyond just the idea of like, well, maybe she gets along with one or both of the kids super well and really takes to them. And like, but there's one thing is like lingering at the end of this episode is this extremely, extremely uncomfortable moment where they lock her in the closet and then let her out after way too long. And she's going to, it'd be hard to believe she doesn't at least like confront them about that, but then maybe, they're able to charm her back into a place of everyone being friends.
Her reaction to me felt so real as a parent of small children of bed now.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Just go to bed.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. All right. Cool. So that will be picked up next week on episode 2 of Bly Manor, The Pupil.
All right.
Let's get into our discussion questions section and wrap this thing up. Matt, what was the question we asked our listeners a couple weeks ago?
Well, we said out of all these stories we talked about, which one would you like to see adapted, and talk about that. And we kind of meant like a more straightforward adaptation than what we're getting in Bly Manor. A Busy Dad 82 said, "It's funny you should ask that question this week because I had a fun interpretation in my head for one of these stories. Unfortunately, I'd need a time machine to pull this off. As I was reading The Jolly Corner, the scenes I had in my head were that of early 60s era Twilight Zone episodes. They also had stories about not being able to ever go home again, but they usually ran the spectrum from more whimsical to bleak. This one is closer to whimsy with a touch of comedy, the tone of the part of the story where he's musing on what he'd have what he'd have been if he stayed, or his missing of her non-sexual cues. This all reminded me of the sweeter side of the Twilight Zone. It was always funny to me how relationships like this were portrayed in those days, and the way these two interact reminds me of how characters like this were often written for TV. But this one also had the added dimension of tension, paranoia, and the horror of the door and the figure of his alternate self. For this, I pictured scenes that had the same tone as the famous Nightmare at 20,000 Feet or The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street."
That's a really fun idea to do like a Twilight Zone thing. I really like that.
I totally see what you mean about like the relationship between the man and woman in that book and that story being something that would fit right in with the like 1950s style, like, the man, he's wearing a suit and a hat and he's can't be bothered, dames, and then like the woman is like,
Dames.
Yeah.
Dames.
Dames. They used to say that all the time. That's perfect. Yeah.
Great. I love it. All right, next we have Apocalypse Win, who says, I know the download numbers on the last few episodes have been less than normal. Yeah, a little bit. But please allow this less than normal listeners to give a big thumbs up. I love classic literature, but Henry James has always been so intimidating. I had only read The Turn of the Screw before, but the series was a perfect excuse to dive deep into what clearly interests him. I finally understand what people mean when they speak of him as a transitory author into more modern styles of storytelling. His understanding of psychology is so deep, small wonder that he's the brother of famed early psychologist William James. Yeah, that's something, Matt, we never actually said on the podcast. I think we talked specifically last week about how Henry James really appreciates psychology, but we never said that like maybe part of that is his brother was a very well-known psychologist.
I didn't know that, so that's why I didn't talk about it.
Yeah. All right, but Apocalypse Win says, after reading far more Henry James than I ever expected to, I don't think any particular short story contains enough plot to sustain a full adaptation. What I would like to see is a Magnolia-style mashup of narratives, disparate but thematically echoing stories of jealousy, bitterness, and regret. The outcomes can range from the good, the Jolly Corner, the Great Good Place, the Altar of the Dead, the bad, the Way It Came, the Beast in the Jungle, the Pupil, and the ugly, the Two Faces, the romance of certain old clothes. If you somehow make all the stories loosely tied together at the end, you have a brilliant anthology-esque saga that positively no one except me would watch. Who should helm such an ambitious endeavor? I vote for Mike Lee. He has dabbled in stuffy period pieces before, and he is a master of conveying the complexities of relationships in both the rich and the poor.
I love this.
I would also watch the shit out of that too.
Yeah. I'm just utterly tickled by your typology of the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's like, yeah, exactly. Perfect.
The only thing I would push against is the Jolly Corner being a good ending.
The Jolly Corner, I mean, he does, he
gets the girl.
Yeah, he gets the girl. He gets through the experience.
I guess I didn't come away feeling particularly positive about the character, but no, I get it.
Yeah, I don't know that was one of my favorite stories anyway, but yeah, I really like this, and Magnolia-esque. Thank you for clearly you've been following along on the Doofcast as well, because we've just been talking about Paul Thomas Anderson on the Doofcast.
Have you seen One Battle After Another yet, Matt?
I have.
You did see One Battle After Another?
I did. We'll have to talk.
Why haven't we haven't talked? Oh my god. What are we doing?
I've been busy. There's been a lot going on lately. But yeah, we should cover that at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Fine. The Sloth Detective says, after reading all the short stories and novellas scheduled for the Bly Manor section of the podcast, I think The Pupil is most filmable / adaptable of them all. It has enough of a plot. The Maureen's are quite a wacky bunch, and Pemberton is interesting enough to be a good protagonist of a movie. If the script could capture his commitment to Morgan and make the audience sympathize with him, that is. Otherwise, viewers would probably think he's too naive, or in other terms, wet toast. I could imagine a younger Andrew Garfield in the role of Pemberton. The talented actor has enough charm to get you to side with his characters, even if they make questionable choices. When it comes to Morgan, I'm not entirely sure who could portray him. If we went 15 years back in time for Garfield, then Freddie Highmore would be the right age for that role. He used to be great at being too wise for his age boy with some very authentic emotional depth. Just look at Finding Neverland, 2004. When it comes to directors, James Ivory would be perfect. He made some excellent period films filled with conflicted and deeply emotional characters. Best example of what I have in mind would be A Room with a View, 85, and Maurice, 87. Wow, okay. What a scholarly and thorough answer.
Yeah.
Let's get a treatment written up, and we can just in the time machine and
let's just make this happen.
See if Garfield can do an English accent, and we're good.
Matt. I'm still just as upset about it as you, Matt, but just for the listeners at home, that just tell them.
He's English.
He's English. Yes. All the great actors are English.
Yeah.
Even Henry Thomas.
Wait, really?
No. I did appreciate it. I did appreciate the look at the camera moment that nobody listening to the audio is going to get, but
Thank you.
Amaranth Phantom says, give me Baz Luhrmann's The Pupil, because the beautiful absurdity of the Marine family needs to be seen in a bombastic riot of color and heavily stylized frenetic cinematography. You just know the man of the world is going to have the raddest fucking mustache you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
That's great. No mustache is going to be as rad as Raoul Coley's mustache in The Haunting of Bly Manor, though. He's rocking that bad boy.
That's right. It's amazing. I love it. I'm gonna copy it.
Done.
Aqua Lungfish says, I would love to see an adaptation of The Pupil as a kind of madcap comedy. Just imagine an hour and a half of weird people being horrible to each other, except for your relatively normal main character. Basically Arrested Development for the early 1900s. What the hell? Just get back the cast of Arrested Development for it. As for who to do it, my brain is sticking to two very different choices, both good for weird and comedic movies. Either Taika Waititi or Wes Anderson could make fun versions of this story. Just might need to add some actual plot to get it to movie length. So one reason those are both perfect choices is I could see them making a madcap comedy and then ending it with the kid dying. Both of them would do a great job at that.
Yep, you're right. That's so great. I am so bad at this game, but it's so great to see our listeners so good at it. Just come up with these ideas, and I'm like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Interesting to see how many people chose The Pupil. I think
would not have expected that, but I guess it makes a little bit of sense. I think The Pupil was one of the more popular ones amongst our listeners. So
yeah. And then we had 3 more answers. I'm just going to go through quickly. Thanks for your contributions, everybody. So from Duran Longbeard wants Michael Bay to direct any James story with lens flares, explosions, horse and carriage chases, and Linkin Park playing as the hero lights the final candle.
God.
I actually would like The Altar of the Dead directed by Michael Bay. Yes. The scene where he discovers that she has been lighting the candle for his rival this whole time. With the rotating camera.
He would do a 360 around.
Yeah.
While the character raises up into frame.
Yeah. We both saw the same exact thing in our heads. From Rach Abake, they say they would like to see The Great Good Place adapted because it just sounds nice right now. Yeah. That does sound nice. And finally,
that's the most tired sounding answer I've ever heard, but I feel you. I
relate. Yeah. And Don Zest wants The Romance of Certain Old Clothes, as it has all the elements of a perfect rom-com with awkward scenes and a husband who quickly dismisses his widow's dying wish. Yeah, after like one argument. Fine, whatever you want. Yeah. That's great.
Oh, those were great answers. Thank you, everyone, for participating in that. That was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Matt, what is our question for this week's episode?
Keeping it simple this week. What's your favorite creepy dollhouse?
It can even be the one from this show, although don't spoil anything.
Yeah.
There's so many creepy dollhouses. I think are just inherently creepy. Because
I agree.
It's a house for what are they doing there? What do they got going on in that dollhouse?
Yeah. And then you look at it and you're like, was that way before?
Yeah. Wait, does that doll look like me?
Yeah.
Why is it in the bathtub?
Where'd that doll come from?
Oh God, is that electric
toaster?
I don't know where I'm going with the toaster. There we go. Is that electric toaster in the? What does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, dollhouses.
My kid has scratched out the eyes of all these dolls.
All right, folks. So yeah, that's it. Creepy dollhouse. Lots of examples, or you can just make some up and scare Matt and me.
Yes, thank you.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for this week. As we said, next week, fitting for all the discussion question answers we got, episode 2 of The Pupil. So if that's the thing you wanted to see most adapted, we'll tune in next week for episode 2 of The Haunting of Bly Manor.
That's right. Remember, you can reach us via email at flanaganswakepod@gmail.com, over on X at flanaganswake19, and of course the subreddit at reddit.com/r/doofmedia is the place to answer that discussion question and hang out and see how people are overdoing their votes on doofmovies.com and so forth. And then of course there's also a Instagram at doofmedia. Don't forget, you can watch us. You can watch all of my little winks at the camera that I do on YouTube. Every episode is in video format on YouTube.
Yeah, and we are trying to mix in clips and stuff as we go, although we've been getting a lot of pushback from the legal powers that be on that kind of stuff. So we'll see how well that goes for Bly Manor, but we're certainly going to be trying it.
Yep.
All right. If you want some merch, head on over to doofmedia.myshopify.com, where we have a bunch of different merchandise. And Matt, I have an anecdote to tell you for our merch plug this week.
Okay.
So as you know, I went to the great city of Philadelphia a couple weeks ago for my 40th birthday party. My wife took me there to an Eagles game, which they unfortunately lost. But I was born in a little town called Mount Holly, New Jersey, which is just like 35 minutes away. So one of the days we were there, we drove out to Mount Holly, and I found this beautiful new little coffee shop in Mount Holly, and they had mugs for sale. And I was like, oh, that is cool. I got a mug, because it had like, how often am I going to have the name of this tiny little town I was born in on a mug? So I bought a mug from this coffee shop, and I brought it home. And I put it in the dishwasher, and I took it out, and it's just a black blank mug now, and all that stuff got immediately washed off. I did check, people. There was nowhere written on the mug or anywhere that said not dishwasher safe. So
wow.
The point of the story is that I have washed our mugs many times, and they have never faded or washed off the design or anything of the sort. So you could be assured that our mugs are of the highest dishwasher safe quality.
What a fantastic organic product placement.
So yeah, get a mug, doofmedia.com, or sorry, doofmedia.myshopify.com.
There's something very metaphorical about the 40th birthday and then the mug washing away all the past.
Yeah.
You can kind of take it a lot of different ways, you know.
It's
depends on what genre you're in.
It's like I bought a $15 mug, and then I got it all the way home, and now it's just a blank black mug.
Well, from your point of view, it's a tragedy. From my point of view, it's a comedy. That's how that works.
It's hurtful.
I'm sorry. It's true though. All right. And if you like any of our shows over on the Doof Podcast Network and you want to support us, and please consider donating to our Patreon account at patreon.com/doofmedia. Speaking of turning 40, we released a bonus podcast episode about a trip that me and Scott and our friend Michael took to New Mexico. It's just a fun little podcast where we share the experience that we all had together celebrating our joint 40th birthday celebration.
Yeah, and our Earth ships.
That's right. We did Earth ships. Yeah, that's actually maybe a better way of pitching it is, rather than like hear three old men talk about themselves, we did Earth ships. We went to the Earth ships of New Mexico. And if you have no idea what that is, then you should listen to the episode.
Yeah. You can get that right now at our Patreon, patreon.com/doofmedia. But of course, if you cannot afford to be a part of our Patreon, that is absolutely okay. You can help us out in tons of other ways. You can share this podcast. We're doing it again. We've started a new series. We started a new popular television show. So this is a great time for people that haven't been listening to jump on board. And if you could help them find the show, that would be very helpful. So please share the podcast, and please leave us a rating and a review. We do not have any new reviews to read today, but I'm sure we'll have some soon, because you guys never let me down. So please do that.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that is it for us this week. We're done. 1 episode down, 8 to go. It's going to go by so fast, Matt. I can't believe it. It's going to go by so fast. And it'll be Christmas by the time we're done somehow.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited. Really enjoying the show. So
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, we'll see you next week for episode 2, The Pupil. Until then, rest in peace, Mr. Flanagan. You thought I wasn't going to do it.
See, that time I just pictured him like clutching his heart at the end of The Pupil and being the little kid. So I was imagining Mike Flanagan being like 4 feet tall and dying.
It's a weird thing to do.
It's because it's the pupil.
Why is he the pupil?
I don't know.
Okay, buddy. The show's over now. You can go.